Well, good morning. I want to welcome all of you to our podcast today. We're grateful for you joining us. And today is going to be one of our kind of special editions, pastor to pastor episode. And I'm delighted to introduce our guest to you this morning. Dr. Stewart Holloway is the pastor of First Baptist Church in Pineville. And Brother Stewart, thank you for getting up early and coming down here.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Yes, sir, and being with us today. And I know you're very, very busy, and so we're grateful for you being here. Dr. Stewart is a Southwesterner. I don't mean that geographically, I mean that educationally. He graduated from Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary over in Fort Worth and got his master's degree there and his doctor's degree. And I'm going to let him begin this morning by just telling us his story, how he came to know the Lord Jesus and his call to ministry, and I know that'll mean a lot to everybody, especially to pastors. So appreciate you coming. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Rob.
Good. You share your story with us.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, so I grew up in church at First Baptist Church LeCount. My mom and dad were very active. Dad was a deacon at times and Sunday school director. Mom was a Sunday school teacher. And we were the kind of folks who were at church Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, and any other time there was something. And so I think I grew up thinking that church was really what saved you. Not that I was taught that. It's just kind of, I was a good kid. I felt like I was, just in the fold, so to speak. I can remember when one of my friends was saved at about 8 or 9 years old, and I remember where we were standing outside the church, and he said, "Well, Stu," that's what they all call me there. He said, "Stu, you need to be saved." And I said, "I'm at church more than you are." And but the Lord planted that. Obviously, that I still remember that conversation. And so then it was in 1987. We went to a RA camp at Acadian Baptist Center in Eunice. And during that week, I was struggling, and they showed a video on hell to a bunch of whatever we were, third or fourth graders at the time. And that really scared me, seeing what hell could be. I think it was that movie, The Devil's Hell. You've probably seen that thing. It is scary even today. And so that started me thinking, and I wrestled and struggled. And I can remember being at church on a Sunday and kind of holding on to the pew during the invitations, knowing I needed to make a decision. Then that September, we had a revival at the church, and Joe Kite, who used to be pastor at Parkview in Alexandria, was preaching that revival. And either during that time or right before, I can remember being in bed, got up one night, went and talked to Mom. She was ironing, and I was talking to her about, I knew I needed to be saved. Well, so we talked a little bit, I went back to bed, and so then finally during that revival, I made my decision to trust Christ. And it was, I think, 2 days before my 12th birthday. And so made that decision and continued to grow in the Lord. It was great to have a personal relationship. And my church was really good. We had even though it was a small church, we had good children's ministry, and we did musicals and RAs and GAs and Sunday school, pretty basic programming, but it was good, informative for us. And so then got into my youth years, and I had from early age, I guess, as far back as I can remember, wanted to be a lawyer. Those were the days of LA Law and all those kind of shows back then, and I wanted the big high-rise office and the BMW and the Mercedes and whatever else. And so I wanted to be a lawyer. Well, so my sister was a lawyer at the time, and so when I got into high school, in my junior year, I guess it was, she encouraged me to have a mock trial team. And so we put that together at the high school, and it was just a bunch of folks, and you're given a case, and you have to learn both sides of the case, and then you go to these competitions, and you share about that case, and you either are defense or prosecution, whatever. And in doing that, I realized I don't want to do this the rest of my life. I can remember Jimmy Faircloth was actually our coach. He was a young attorney at the Gold Law Firm in Alexandria. Walked into Jimmy's office one evening for our little team practice, and he had just briefs stacked up with sticky notes all down them. And he said, "Well, guys, this was my reading for today." And I remember thinking, nope, I'm not doing that. And so that was formative. Here I am, a junior in high school, And for my whole life, I knew what I was going to do, and now I don't know what I'm going to do. And so I wrestled with different kind of things and looked into different career paths and really didn't know. So then that summer before my senior year of high school, we went to youth camp at Dry Creek, and that whole week, the Lord was wrestling with me, and I'm like, okay, am I saved? Yes, I'm saved. I remember that. I kind of walked through all that. What else is God doing? It was just unsettled, and finally, probably the Wednesday night of that camp, I just realized that the Lord was calling me to ministry, and
What did you think about that at first?
it was it was sh- it was shocking because that wasn't on my radar at all. But I felt like the Lord was saying that you are the way you are because this is what I'm calling you to do. And I jokingly say the thing that was kind of in my spirit is you're good at a lot of things, but not real good at anything, and that's intentional. You're kind of a jack of all trades when it comes to abilities, and I've made you like that for ministry. And so I went and talked to our youth leader at the time, which was actually a girl I'd grown up with who was 2 years older. And, I remember her saying, well, that's not surprising to me. I was a little nervous about going home and telling my parents because I have a half brother and half sister who are much older. And as I said, my sister was an attorney at the time. My brother was a chemical engineer. My brother had just gotten a job up in Michigan, and Daddy was, John's making six figures. He's doing good. He's got the, something. Okay, I'm gonna come home and say I'm the preacher.
We'll be a poor
I'm
preacher.
gonna be a poor preacher. So I got home, and that Thursday night, I think it was when we got home from camp. It may have been Friday. I think it was Thursday. I'm sitting there in the den, and they're talking, and then finally I just say, "Well, guess what I did this week?" And then I told them.
They thought you were crazy?
And they immediately affirmed it.
Good.
And it was wonderful. There was nothing but support from Mom and Dad, and Dad would talk about it, and they of course they paid for my education and were really proud, and so
well, that's awesome.
really
And
good.
I hear talking to pastors again and again, I hear them sharing about their call. It's just as distinct as when we were called to salvation with God.
Yeah.
It's clear,
It is clear.
and it really is amazing and
Yeah.
awesome. So that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, I've got so many things I want to talk to you about because I know preaching is your big interest, and you told me that was the focus of your doctoral work. And so I do want to ask you later about, give us some good ideas about preaching. But you mentioned First Baptist Church LeCount, and you're one of a couple of churches in our area that have multi-campuses, and y'all just recently, within the last
4 years.
that
Yeah,
last
4 years
4
ago
years,
now we took.
assumed responsibility for First Baptist LeCount. One thing that was interesting in that to me, or at least looking from the outside, is that y'all decided to have that campus keep its name. Many times they change. I thought that was, just from my perspective, I thought that was really a good thing.
Yeah, that was we struggled with that. What do we do that? First Baptist Church Pineville in LeCount didn't make sense.
Right.
And sometimes churches that are First Baptist especially, or even other names, they'll change their name when they go multi-site to some kind of Cornerstone or some kind of more Sinlaw Baptist or something. And I knew First Baptist Pineville wasn't going to change a name.
Right.
We didn't really want to. And if I'm most honest, I think there was something in me that didn't really want my home church to lose its name and identity. And so
I think there's something important in that.
And so we just decided, we're both First Baptist. We'll use that, and then we'll just put under it a campus of First Baptist Church Pineville. And I think that's worked well. Though the people at LeCount, they really gave up their church because they dissolved and merged with Pineville. They were able to keep that name and some of that identity.
So a lot of the people are still there in the church that were there when you...
Oh, yeah, a lot of them that helped. Really, the core is still the people who, helped raise me or who I grew up with. And so, I now preach to people, people who are my Sunday school teachers, the parents of my peers, and so it's really neat.
So logistically, Do you do a simulcast from your church, or do you physically have to
I
go?
physically go there, so we do a 9:15 service at LeCount, and then they do Sunday school after worship.
So you
And
preach
then
the same
and at
sermon?
Pineville, I preach the same sermon. So I kind of joke, but it is what I do. I walk out during the last prayer at LeCount, jump in my truck, drive to Pineville, and walk in during the
Is it
second
better the
song.
second time you preach
It is definitely the same time. It is definitely better the second time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's interesting. I actually read in the sermon series that you preached it.
Oh wow, that's been a while.
I think
Yeah,
I got that
mean,
at the E4
probably
conference,
so.
maybe.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I read in there, and I wrote it in here, in 1958, Sunday school attendance at First Baptist Church Pineville was 1,387. Amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was in, I guess, the 50s?
Yeah, it's like
58.
58. I think it was the year right before they built the sanctuary that we now have, and that was kind of a peak. They had some. They did have some nursing home, I think, numbers in that with some off-site Sunday schools.
So
but it was
today,
still a
what do you
bunch.
run?
We run in Sunday schools in the high threes. Worship is in the fours.
And at LeCount?
At LeCount, we're between probably 97 and 110 in worship.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Um,
So both of those campuses, were revitalizations. So, Pineville's been a revitalization for the last 17 years I've been there, and continue to build on that.
I attended there, my wife and I did. I don't remember the date, it's been several years ago. After I left my last church, we went there for a while. And I haven't forgotten something you said in one of your sermons. As a matter of fact, I've used it as an illustration a time or two. You visited a family there that was on the roads at Pineville. And when you visited them, they had not been there since
Right.
the 50s. This was, of
Yes.
course, in the 2000s. And
Yeah.
the point was they had just gotten out of the habit and quit going. The last time they were there, they were building the new sanctuary.
Right.
It had been like 30 years.
Right.
Since
I said, the new sanctuary? You mean the one from
So,
1958?
but things just sound like they're going very, 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 very well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they are.
I want to ask you about some preaching things, and I know pastors will be interested in this. And I'm so grateful for the E4 conference that y'all have every year. There's really, it seems like there was a decline in that. There used to be a lot of things at the state level, or some things for pastors, preachers conferences,
Yeah.
and the like. The national conferences are good. They're very expensive. You have to travel and all of that. And so this one is, from a cost perspective, it's really cheap, and I appreciate that. Do you preach? I know you don't preach topically. You hardly see that anymore.
Right.
But I know you preach textually, which is kind of the word that they use at Southwestern, text-driven preaching. Which you would say would be synonymous with expository preaching?
Well, it depends on how you define expository.
Yeah.
A lot of
Well,
people
there's a
define
thousand
it a thousand
different
different ways,
yeah.
right? But yeah, so basically where the text drives the message. And so I will do more traditional expository series through a book, as you have the Nehemiah series there. And then I'll also do what I would call a textual driven series that might be on a certain topic. Like I just finished up a series on identity, and we went through scripture and pulled different passages where basically God's saying who you are, and so each message was driven by a particular text and what God said in that particular text. So each individual message of that series was more of an expository message, driving home a certain point.
Right. Yeah, I noticed that. I was looking through this series, and it seems you kind of take, like Haddon Robinson in his book, which I brought, Expository Preaching, the big idea of the text. My preaching professor at New Orleans, Dr. Bryson, he had a little acrostic, the ESS, the essence of the sermon in a sentence.
Yeah,
which
they've
is the
all
same
got
thing,
their...
which I think is a good idea. You take one point, and then your subpoints, you drive that.
Yeah, at Southwestern, it was the central idea of the text, and then you get you're going to have that thesis statement that's going to drive the message. And sometimes that thesis is real clear, and I'll repeat it through the message, and sometimes it becomes my title, it just kind of depends on the message itself.
Right. So you do mainly series?
I do. I do mainly series. Every now and then between a series, I'll do, a one off or two off that are on particular things, like the next 2 or 3 weeks or sort of like that. Because I'm in between a series, and then I'm going to do a series on Titus after Easter, so more of a traditional expository, just walking through verse by verse. And so I don't do a whole lot of individual messages. Part of that is I think our people engage when there's a series and they're following along. They become a part of that, and they start looking forward to the next step, whether that's working through a book or whether that's you're driving, like this identity series. I had people saying, I hate it's coming to an end because I was learning things about it. So I have found that series are good for the people. It's also a lot easier for the preacher because you know what's coming because you've laid it out ahead
How
of time.
far out are you scheduled? You do it a year at a time, quarter at a time?
It kind of depends. I know what I'm preaching through the summer right now. So, and I planned that out probably 8 months ago. So it's getting to be about time where I would plan out what we're going to be doing in the fall on through at least Christmas. Yeah.
Which is a great way because you can accumulate not only your thoughts but illustrations.
You're just always thinking about where things are,
really
and you can pull
kind of
things.
magnetic to do it that way. So, well, that's great. What book are you reading right now?
I am actually reading a biography on a guy who was the lead pilot in the bombing of Pearl Harbor, and was a Japanese pilot, and who later came to faith in Christ and became an evangelist, and just started it. It was given to me by Dr. Dan O'Regan, who's one of our members, and Dan just passed away. And on the last time I really visited with him for an extended period, he got to talking about that, and the book was sitting on a table beside, and I picked it up and looking at it, and he said, well, let me give you that. And so it's good to...
Just had his funeral.
Had his funeral last Friday.
Yeah. And the week before, Steve Gaines passed away.
Steve Gaines passed away. Just a giant in Southern Baptist circles, great exposure.
I remember when he went to Bellevue, somebody asked him, what was it like following Adrian Rogers? And he said something like this. He said, I just pray for the grace of God every day.
I can't imagine.
No, I can't either. Completely different voices and different styles to a large degree. So yeah, he was a great preacher. So if you had one book on preaching, if you were on a deserted island, you could have any books besides the Bible. You could have 3 books on preaching. What would be your number one preaching book? There are a gazillion of them.
There's a gazillion of them. There are a gazillion of them. I was taught with Steps to the Sermon. That was the old standard at Southwestern. Brown, Clyder, Northcutt, and Faisal wrote that. It goes back to the 50s. I'm actually working back through that one with a guy I'm mentoring at our church. It's been kind of interesting to walk back through that with him. I think that one would probably be one. I love Robinson's biblical preaching. That's a good one. There's some others by some guys, and I'm trying to pull them up. Shaddix and Vines had the Power in the Pulpit, I believe. David Allen's got textual driven preaching. There's so many good ones. It's hard for me to narrow down to what would be the one I would go with.
They asked Jerry Vines a question similar to that. It wasn't about preaching books, but they asked him what 3 books he could, if he were, besides the Bible. And I was amazed. He said the first one he mentioned was Through the Bible, which I have I got the thing all in one volume, by J. Sidlow Baxter. I thought that was very, very interesting. And of course, Dr. Vines, in his 80s, got his doctor's degree at Southwestern. So, Well, listen, I appreciate you coming this morning, and just anything you want to share with pastors out there, just to encourage them and to keep on keeping on. And
I would just say, keep pressing on. It's challenging at times, and it's exhausting at times, but stay in the Word. and find opportunities to celebrate what God's doing. Uh, you can get bogged down in the frustrations and challenges, but God's always doing something around you. And I think that's where we find our encouragement, is to be able to thank God. God, thank you for this. The little things, the little victories, the little comments that people make where you see spiritual growth, the person that's finally moved from the pew to service, the people who say more than that was a good sermon, Pastor, but they really hung on to something. Celebrate those things and gain encouragement from that the Lord is using you, and He's moving people closer to Him through what you're doing each day.
So how long have you been at Pineville?
Been there 17 and a half years.
Wow. So there's a lot to be said about longevity in the pastorate.
I do believe there is. It changes the way you're able to lead, because you have relationships, you have trust, you understand the people, you understand the organization, and I think it helps things to move a little bit quicker.
Yeah. Trust
is a big thing. Yeah.
You know, W.A. Criswell said that when God calls you to a church, He calls you there to stay.
Yeah.
And of course He did that at First Dallas. But
yes, He did.
Yeah. Well, appreciate everything you do, and
Thanks, Rob.
thank you for coming early this morning.
Man.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
Thank y'all for joining us, and we'll have this posted by Friday, and y'all have a great day in the Lord. God bless you.